The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow in my bedroom as I busied myself with tidying up. When suddenly, the door let out a soft creak behind me. I pivoted, and there stood Ryan in the doorway. His gaze fixed on the object cradled in my hands. My heart ceased to beat. What would be the best way to articulate this? The object bore no semblance of innocence, a sizable, vividly hued plaything, one that no courteous dialogue could overlook. I retrieved it from the drawer, intending to clean the back of the cabinet, my mind not dwelling on it too much. The door was securely locked by me, at least. That was my assumption. Ryan was my stepson, just 23 years of age. He was not meant to be back just yet. He toiled at a nearby brewery, often lingering into the night with friends after his shifts. Yet, there he stood, tall and slender, his dark hair cascading into his playful blue eyes. "What is that?" he inquired. His voice lingered in a space that danced between intrigue and playful mockery. My face flushed with a deep crimson hue. I let the item slip from my grasp as if it had seared my skin, hastily snatching up the nearest object, a throw pillow from the bed, to shield it from view. "It's none of your business," I stammered, my throat tightening with each word, yet his expression remained unchanged. He leaned against the doorframe, a growing curiosity evident in his posture. "You realize there's no need for you to feel so embarrassed," he remarked, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. I've encountered something similar before. I longed to retreat into the depths of a hidden crevice. The sheer audacity of this young man, standing there with an air of nonchalance, utterly unfazed as my world spiraled into chaos. I let out a strained chuckle, eager to lighten the heavy atmosphere. "Ryan, honestly, focus on your own affairs. You really have no place in here." Yet he remained still. For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us, thick and nearly suffocating. His gaze had shifted from the pillow cradled in my hands to me. His gaze held a distinct quality, far removed from the familiar laid-back or playful glances I had come to expect. This one hung in the air, stretching out its presence with an almost palpable intensity. It felt as though he had stripped away the facade of who he believed me to be, revealing an entirely different essence beneath. A peculiar sensation washed over me. A flicker of warmth nestled deep within my chest, swiftly accompanied by a piercing pang of guilt. This was incorrect. This was undeniably a grave mistake. I held the role of his stepmother. For heaven's sake, I was wed to his father. I turned my head slightly, shattering the stillness that enveloped us. "Ryan, I implore you, just leave." With a resigned shrug, he raised his hands in a gesture of feigned surrender. "Very well. Very well," he remarked, his voice returning to a playful note. Yet, just before his departure, he cast one final glance in my direction, a glance that propelled my already tumultuous thoughts into a whirlwind. With the door clicking shut behind him, I settled onto the edge of the bed, the pillow held tightly against my chest. My heart raced with fervor. The thought of returning the item to the drawer was simply beyond me. An unseen force seemed to alter the atmosphere that enveloped us. No matter how much I attempted to push it aside, I understood that my perception of Ryan would forever be altered. Throughout the evening, the moment lingered in my thoughts, refusing to be forgotten. I made an effort. I prepared dinner, neatly folded the laundry, and settled beside John on the couch as he browsed through classic westerns on the television. Yet Ryan's face lingered in my thoughts, his amused smirk and the disquieting glint in his eyes a haunting presence. John hardly acknowledged my wandering thoughts. That was hardly a revelation. For years now, ever since his retirement, he had immersed himself in his hobbies: gardening, woodworking, and crossword puzzles. I held no resentment towards him for it. That would have been far too simple. Yet at times, I sensed that my role resembled that of a live-in caretaker rather than that of a wife. At one moment, I cast my gaze down the corridor and glimpsed Ryan's silhouette as he navigated within his room. The soft murmur of music drifted through his door, a deep bass line that contrasted sharply with the serene silence enveloping the rest of the house. My heart leaped, inexplicably. As if stirred by an unseen force, I redirected my focus to my husband. John lay in a gentle slumber, his chin resting softly against his chest as he snored quietly. Once more, he had succumbed to slumber in his recliner, the television continuing its monotonous hum in the background. I contemplated rousing him from his slumber, yet I found myself questioning the purpose of such an action. Instead, I rose and meandered into the kitchen, savoring a fleeting moment of solitude, yet solitude did not linger for long. Ryan entered, his bare feet making no sound on the polished hardwood floor. He donned a worn t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair disheveled as if he had just raked his fingers through it. Hey, he remarked nonchalantly as he swung open the fridge and reached for a bottle of water. It seems you're burning the midnight oil. I might echo those sentiments, I responded, maintaining a playful tone. He smiled, leaning against the wall. Just unwinding, he said, you know, it's not easy being under this roof sometimes. The remark caused me to hesitate. Could you clarify what you mean? He shrugged. Yet a flicker of gravity lingered in his expression. It's just a matter of settling back into this place. I suppose I sense a disconnection from my surroundings, as if I no longer belong. I felt a gentle warmth wash over me in spite of all that had transpired. A flicker of maternal worry stirred within me. This is merely a fleeting moment, Ryan. You will find your way. You possess intelligence and confidence. You will find your footing once again. Thank you, Ava, he murmured, his voice now softer. Your gratitude is noted and valued. In that fleeting moment, we found ourselves enveloped in silence. The kitchen seemed to constrict around us, the distance between us diminishing, despite our stillness. His gaze held onto mine, and once more, I experienced that familiar spark of warmth blossoming in my chest. I cleared my throat and occupied myself with wiping the counter, eager to dispel the unsettling atmosphere that seemed poised to envelop me. Yet Ryan had more to say regarding earlier, he began, his tone shifting back to a playful note. There's no need for embarrassment. You see, after all, we are all just human, aren't we? My hand halted in its motion, and I glanced at him, striving to maintain my poise. Ryan, let's steer clear of that conversation, shall we? It was an unfortunate incident, and there's no need to revisit it. Very well, he replied, lifting his hands in a gesture of capitulation. Yet within the curve of his smile lay a playful hint that sent a flutter through my stomach. He strolled by me then, just within reach, and I caught a subtle hint of his cologne. I refrained from looking back, yet his presence lingered just behind me for a fleeting moment before he ultimately. I had always succeeded in upholding distinct boundaries, lines that were never intended to be breached. Yet, Ryan possessed an uncanny ability to blur those boundaries, often without even intending to, and the most troubling aspect was, I found myself uncertain about whether I truly wanted him to cease. The following morning, I endeavored to maintain a facade of normalcy. I set about preparing breakfast as I had always done, for John, a simple yet satisfying breakfast of eggs, toast, and coffee awaits, a smoothie crafted just for me. As was his custom, Ryan was the final one to enter the kitchen, his hair still glistening with moisture from a recent shower. He greeted John with a laid-back morning and me with a smile that sent my heart racing. At the table, the three of us gathered, surrounded by the melodic clinking of silverware and the occasional flutter of conversation that danced through the air. Yet, beneath the surface, the tension was palpable. Each time Ryan's fingers grazed against mine while we exchanged the salt or topped off our coffee, it seemed intentional. He watched me more than once, his gaze unwavering and inscrutable. John naturally remained oblivious to all of this. Following breakfast, Ryan graciously extended his assistance to help me tidy up. Typically, he would have retreated to his room or ventured out with friends, so his unexpected offer took me by surprise. You don't have to, I said as I piled the plates into the sink. I want to, he replied, his hands already reaching for a dish rag. We toiled in quietude for a time, yet the atmosphere surrounding us crackled with unspoken tension. In a fleeting moment, I extended my hand toward a glass just as he did, and our fingers met in an unexpected clash. Neither of us withdrew right away. You're different, he murmured, his voice barely rising above a whisper. I took a deep breath. Could you clarify what you mean? He paused, his gaze probing into my own. I'm not sure, but you certainly don't behave like other women in your age group. I chuckled uneasily, retreating to establish a bit of space. That's quite flattering, I must say. It wasn't merely that, he pressed on, his tone now grave. Indeed, you exist in the truest sense. You truly pay attention. One observes individuals. His voice held a sincerity that caught me by surprise. At a loss for words, I redirected my attention to the dishes once more, yet as I scrubbed, an unmistakable sense of his presence lingered just behind me. My heart raced once more, and I struggled with the growing tension between us, unsure of how to maintain a professional relationship. Before I had the chance to collect my thoughts, John's voice echoed from the living room. Ava, could you tell me the whereabouts of my crossword book? The instant fractured, Ryan took a step back, offering me a subtle, understanding smile. I'll let you get back to him, he said, his voice returning to a light tone as he turned to leave. A complex swirl of relief and yearning washed over me. I was acutely aware of the danger I was courting, yet an undeniable urge compelled me to embrace the flames. That afternoon, I occupied myself with various errands, anything to engage my thoughts. Upon my return home, I discovered Ryan perched on the porch steps. Gazing contemplatively at the yard, he appeared to be adrift in contemplation. So different from the assured young man I had come to know. Hey, I murmured gently as I drew near. He lifted his gaze, a subtle smile spreading across his face. Greetings, is everything okay? He paused, weighing his response carefully. Indeed, lost in contemplation. What is it about? Such is life. I suppose the path before me to where I ought to be going. I settled beside him, maintaining a careful distance, yet near enough for me to sense the warmth of his presence. You possess youth, Ryan. It's perfectly fine not to have everything sorted out at this moment, perhaps, he murmured. His eyes remaining locked on the yard. After a moment's hesitation, he continued, have you ever sensed that you are destined for something beyond the ordinary? As if you find yourself ensnared in a narrative that doesn't belong to you? His words resonated with me, more deeply than I was willing to acknowledge. My desire was to offer him solace, to assure him that all would turn out well, yet, the reality was, I found it hard to believe that within myself. I rested my hand on his shoulder, applying a gentle squeeze. You're not trapped, I said, my voice quivering despite my efforts to remain steady. For a fleeting instant, his hand enveloped mine. The gesture resonated with an intimacy that seemed almost surreal. I withdrew swiftly. But the damage was done. Another line crossed, another boundary blurred, and I wasn't sure how to navigate the increasingly uncomfortable situation. As dusk settled, the heavens deepened into a foreboding shade, heralding the approach of a tempest. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, as if the very essence of existence held its breath, poised for an impending event. John retired for the night earlier than usual, as was his custom, lamenting the discomfort of an aching shoulder. As I nestled into the living room, a book cradled in my hand, yet my concentration eluded me. The tempest raging beyond my window reflected the turmoil brewing inside my soul, a force that is untamed, erratic, and fraught with peril. Ryan found himself in the kitchen. The soft creak of the fridge door echoed in the stillness of the house. The soft sound of glass meeting glass reached my ears as he filled his glass with a. Shortly thereafter, he emerged in the doorway of the living room, cradling two glasses in his hands. Whiskey, perhaps, he inquired, arching an eyebrow. I blinked, momentarily taken aback. I typically refrain from indulging at this hour. Perhaps tonight is a departure from the norm. With a grin, he offered me a glass, not pausing for a reply. With a moment's pause, I finally grasped it. The chilled glass rested against my palm. Ryan settled into the armchair opposite me, extending his legs in a relaxed manner. The lamp beside me illuminated his face with a soft warmth, accentuating the defined contours of his jaw and the subtle shadow of stubble gracing his chin. What book has captured your attention? He inquired, gesturing toward the volume resting in my lap. Merely a fleeting moment, I responded, lifting it momentarily. Unremarkable, to say the least. He wore a sly grin that seems difficult to accept. I chuckled quietly, savoring a sip of the whiskey. The sting was sharp, yet it offered a much-needed reprieve from the mounting tension that had enveloped the day. For a time, we lingered in a tranquil hush. The tempest beyond raged with increasing ferocity, and then he uttered another word, his tone barely above a whisper. May I ask how you're feeling about everything? I cast a cautious look in his direction. It varies based on the specifics. He swirled the liquid in his glass, his gaze locked onto it, as if he were collecting his thoughts. Do you ever feel like you need more space? His inquiry took me by surprise. It bore an unsettling resemblance to the question he had posed earlier on the porch. Yet now, it carried a distinct heaviness. At times, I found myself confessing, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. He lifted his gaze, our eyes locking in an unspoken connection. You appear to be someone who deserves to be free. Your spirit is far too vibrant for such limitations. My cheeks burned with a sudden warmth. I averted my gaze, placing my glass gently upon the coffee table. Ryan, it's best to refrain from expressing thoughts in that manner. What holds us back, indeed, it is so. His words lingered in the atmosphere, heavy with unexpressed significance. I rose suddenly, craving distance from him. I believe it's time. We called it a night, I murmured, deliberately steering clear of his eyes. Just as I was about to step out of the room, the lights flickered and darkness enveloped me. The abrupt plunge into darkness left me bewildered, and I halted in my tracks. Oh, I whispered, my voice trembling. It's merely the storm, Ryan remarked, his voice steady and composed. I sensed him rise, the gentle whisper of his footsteps against the carpet. Just a moment, let me locate a flashlight. I sensed his approach, the subtle whisper of fabric brushing against itself as he drew near in the shadows. Our hands briefly touched as we fumbled in the dark. I quickly turned away to avoid lingering too long, and I quickly pulled back, trying to regain control of the situation. Apologies, he whispered, yet he remained steadfast, not retreating. His hand lingered, warm against mine, and the atmosphere around us appeared to transform. I remained still. I was unable to. My heart raced with such intensity that I was convinced he could hear its frantic rhythm. Ava, he murmured, his voice a gentle breath barely escaping his lips. I shifted my gaze in his direction, despite the shadows obscuring him from view, yet I could sense him, his essence, his warmth, his rhythmic breath. His hand glided softly to my wrist, enveloping it with a tender grip. This is a bad idea, I said, my voice quivering with uncertainty. I understand, he responded, yet he held on tightly. The initial flash of lightning illuminated the room for a fleeting instant, and in that heartbeat, I caught a glimpse of his face, genuine, exposed, inextricably intertwined. And then he pressed his lips to mine. The moment was awkward and full of hesitation, as we both tried to make sense of the situation, yet I refrained. Instead, I found myself drawn closer to him, my fingers clutching his shirt as if he were the sole anchor in a whirlwind of chaos. As the lights surged back to life, we separated, each of us gasping for breath. The weight of our actions crashed over me, overwhelming like a relentless tide. I took a step back, my hands quivering with uncertainty. This cannot happen, I declared, shaking my head in disbelief. Ryan remained silent. He remained motionless, his face a mask of inscrutability. I know, he reiterated, his voice unwavering, yet the harm had already been inflicted. The ensuing days unfolded in a haze of furtive looks and silent conversations. I steered clear of Ryan whenever possible, immersing myself in chores and errands, seeking any distraction to occupy my thoughts. Yet, despite my efforts, the memory of his lips against mine and the warmth of his hand resting on my wrist remained etched in my mind. One evening, while I was meticulously folding laundry in the guest room, Ryan materialized in the doorway. We need to talk, he said, his voice steady and resolute. I kept my gaze downcast. There is nothing to discuss. Indeed, there is. He entered the room, gently shutting the door behind him. I let out a soft sigh, placing the laundry aside as I finally locked eyes with him. Ryan, this situation, whatever it may be, must come to an end. It is incorrect, could it be? He inquired, his voice laced with defiance. It simply doesn't strike me as incorrect. His words sent a chill racing along my spine, yet, I compelled myself to maintain my composure. You failed to grasp the situation. If John ever discovers the truth, he won't, and even if he did, do you honestly believe he would care? He let out a derisive laugh, his head shaking in disbelief. He hardly seems to acknowledge your presence these days, in part due to their authenticity. Yet, that did not render them correct. What is the reason behind this? He inquired. Your fear of others' opinions holds you back, or perhaps it's the fear of the thoughts that may arise within you. I parted my lips to offer a reply. Tears threatened to spill from the corners of my eyes.